Being constantly under the pressure of that unspoken voice whispering, is it all really worth it? Maybe you should have been a doctor, a lawyer, or even an adult film director. It doesn't matter. But that voice, your inner voice, that invisible monster is here to sabotage your path. It sticks, it sticks. It seeks to stop you from finishing your novel or, long-term project. Why? Because it's in our human nature to hesitate when faced with obstacles, to feel a deep-seated fear when the lights go out, if you're a kid. But the hesitation is only part of the problem. Another, more insidious aspect plays a crucial role in this sudden halt. H.P. Lovecraft, one of my favorite authors, summed it up perfectly.
The oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown.
Throughout the writing process, this persistent question keeps coming back. Will this novel I'm writing ever get published? It's probably the most obsessive question for any writer. That fear, the fear of not knowing if anyone will ever read your story, scares you. And what if all those months of relentless effort, those sleepless nights, those sacrifices were for nothing? The first, the second, or even the 1000th novel you write will never be perfect. It might become your masterpiece, but it will never be perfect. Never. You could take any novel, rewrite it dozens, hundreds of times, and create a better version, more polished, more refined. But all of your efforts will never, but despite all your efforts, it will never be perfect. I know I'm repeating myself, but it's crucial to understand this. Don't chain yourself to the idea of perfection. It's a trap, an illusion that will only slow down your process, if not bring it to a brutal halt. Writing a novel requires an enormous amount of motivation and discipline. It's a task that demands total commitment, especially to reach the finish line. It involves extensive research, days when you could have gone with the boys, or evenings spent with your best friend's mom. The problem with such a level of commitment is that a single moment of laziness can ruin hours, even days or weeks of writing. All it takes is deciding not to write one day, or postponing the work to the following week. Postponing the work to the following week. Disrupting your process requires very, very little effort. Thinking about writing is much easier than actually sitting down and write. So if you can try not to fall into that trap. Writer's block. That infamous moment is known to every writer, even non-writers. Sometimes this sudden stop is genuinely due to a lack of ideas, but in most cases because you're like overanalyzing a character or a scene. This moment also tends to occur if you're the type of writer who doesn't plan or structure your story. I know I am. But the wall also appears when you start questioning yourself. That inner voice often resurfaces at this point. So try not to listen to it. Instead, focus on simply imagining the rest of the journey. Easier said than done. Finally, you've finished your story. You wrote the cringy part out of it. You probably sent it to some friends or family members so they can give you an honest review. That when you thought it was ready, you probably wrote a cover letter, maybe a summary. Only then you start sending copies to publishing houses, hoping they won't toss it aside because you made a punctuation mistake on page 223. This part is what we call the waiting game. During these weeks, or more likely months, you find yourself lost in a room full of people trying to pull you back into reality. Meanwhile, you can't help but wonder, was it worth it?
You do hit 6 pages a day?
I usually do.
You don't ever have a day where you sit down there and it's like constipation and you write a sentence and you hate the sentence and
Okay.
you check your email and you wonder if you had any talent after all and maybe you should have been a plumber.